Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Last couple of segments, we're going to talk to the head of the Wynn Sportsbook right now out in Las Vegas. One of my favorite guests, the great John Avello. John, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Artie, I'm doing really well, thanks.
So, John, where do you got this series? We're here with Chris Mannix. Chris writes for Sports Illustrated, and he's a basketball guy, and he's taking the Spurs on like 6 games, maybe 7. You see a lot of money going on the Spurs, or what?
Well, the series, they're about a 2.5 to 1 favorite, the Heat over the Spurs. Mm-hmm. And the early money's been on the Spurs. Game 1 is 5.5. The total on that game is 188.5. You know, my personal opinion is that if you can't look at this last series and think that the Heat are vulnerable, the matchup was just a very difficult one for them. And, we kind of knew that going in, and it proved to be that way. I think this is a much easier matchup for them. The Spurs are a little older. I don't know if this team has got the stamina that the Heat and can sustain a long series. I personally think the Heat take them out in about 5.
What about Wade's injury and the possibility that it's a little more, serious than the people are letting on?
Well, that certainly doesn't help. But I can tell you, Wade, when we look at Wade, this is not the same Wade as in the past. He can still do a lot of damage, and he's turned into more of a role player. But LeBron James creates, and that leaves Dwayne Wade free to do a lot of things. With Wade, even without Wade, I still think they'd have a chance in this series. So, but I think he'll be there. I think he'll do his part as the role player, and I think this team will be very difficult to dethrone.
So, but Chris, you're saying, explain your argument with the younger guys on the Spurs to John, because I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I agree with John that the matchup with Indiana was difficult.
Right.
The size was ridiculous. Miami does not react well to size, and Indiana knew how to play them. They had good perimeter defenders there, and they weren't afraid of them. Based on how they played them last year. Where I would disagree is that number one, I don't look at San Antonio as an old team. I look at them as having a couple of old players. They've got an old Tim Duncan, but he's playing as well as he's played in almost a decade. Ginobili, he's a little bit, he's certainly significantly dropped off from his, play 10 years ago or the last championship run. But Parker's only 30. Tiago Splitter's in his 20s. Danny Green is in his 20s. Kawhi Leonard's in his 20s. The guys they roll out there for significant minutes are guys that are playing in their 20s. No question they're an older team than Miami, but I think that sometimes it's misconstrued that San Antonio is this aging team, that this is their kind of last stand and last chance at this. And the other part I disagree is that, I think we need to it needs to be remembered how good Tony Parker is and just how bad Miami is at defending point guards. I mean, their last couple of years, really, since the Big Three were formed together and they decided, well, screw it, we're going to go with Mario Chalmers and Norris Cole, they get beat pretty badly by point guards. I mean, Rajon Rondo has almost beaten them by himself in a couple of series. I think Tony Parker, who was an MVP candidate this year, he wasn't just one of the top 5 point guards. For a while there, he was one of the top 5 players in all the NBA. I think Tony Parker is going to be a real challenge for Miami to handle.
Well, I wouldn't disagree, and I would say Tony Parker is one of the MVP player this year. I mean, this guy's just been remarkable. I've watched Tony Parker play quite a few years, and this year I would say boy, that Tony Parker's something special. I mean, I've said it a couple times this year. He's been amazing. But I tell you, LeBron James to me is he's more than special. This guy. I mean, he gets the job done. He's not going to let his team quit. I think all these players, Parker, Danny Green, Splitter, these guys all they're 10, 11 points a game kind of guys. And, they're going to have to play to their full potential. This team's going to have to play much better than even the Pacers played to beat this team. I just think Miami they've got past their tough series. If you look at them, they don't lose many games at home. They've only lost 6 games. They've only lost 14 total on the road. There is one area where I think they are really weak and totally overmatched here, and that's coaching. I mean, to me, it's not even close. I think Popovich is a great coach, a guy that can make adjustments from game to game. So that's where I think they have a big advantage, San Antonio.
Well, I mean, again, what you're saying, too, is with the LeBron thing, the thing about the Chicago Bulls in the 90s was at the end they had number 23. So,
in one area look, Indiana was great, but Indiana gift wrapped that series to them in a lot of ways. I mean, they turned the ball over like 20 times a game. Last game was 21. It was unbelievable. The first game was 20. Indiana can't find a way to take care of the basketball. They were bottom third in the NBA in the regular season. They averaged like 16 per game against the Knicks in the second round. They managed to win that series, but turnovers just destroyed them. And no team in the league capitalizes on turnovers as well as Miami. They turn turnovers into points as well as any team in the league. And I don't think the Spurs are going to commit as many mistakes as Indiana did.
John, you have anything for John?
Yeah, I always like hearing about the crazy bets that you have going on. Like, what interesting bets are out there for this finals?
Do they do that in the NBA as much as the NFL? I don't know. Do you have like a lot of those crazy bets?
It's not like the Super Bowl, but you're going to find a lot of bets out there. You're going to find total points for Parker and total rebounds for Duncan, and we're going to have all those type of props up there. That's what the players, the bettors like. They don't like you to mix this with something else. You know how we usually take a game from something else in the Super Bowl and mix the two together. We won't be doing that with this. This will be strictly based on this basketball game alone, each game individually.
That's interesting. What's the under/over if you have it in front of you? Rebounds for Duncan in Game 1, under/over.
You're probably looking at about 9 or 10, somewhere in that area. Probably 10.
What do you like there, Chris? Under over? See, this is where I get hooked as a gambler.
I would take the over if it was any other team but Miami, who gets beat up on the boards a lot. Worst rebounding team in the NBA during the regular season. The only game they won the battle of the boards in that last series was the last one.
Right.
Duncan's not a prolific rebounder by any stretch. He's not going to be one of those guys that gives you 12, 13 every single night. But against Miami's front line, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, I think he can give you more than 9 or 10.
What about John? What about LeBron James and points for the first game, under over?
Yeah, probably 20s, high 20s. That's what you're going to look at. I mean, tomorrow I'll go in and I'll do all the props for the Thursday night game, but that's what you're probably looking at for him, high 20s, somewhere around 27.5, 28.5, somewhere in that area.
Wow.
What about points for Parker? Same ballpark?
Well,
lower probably.
Yeah, no, Parker's going to be Parker's going to probably be somewhere around 20, 22, I'd say, somewhere in that. That team distributes the ball. I mean, Duncan scores, and then, you got Kawhi Leonard and Ginobili, and they're all guys that are in that 10, 11 range a game. And so, I think Parker needs to have a good shooting night, that's for sure, and he normally does. I mean, he's over 500 field goal percentage guy for the year, so he'll get his points, that's for sure.
I just hope it's a good series. I hope they give the Heat a run, and it's interesting at least. And look, I really do hope they win. I hope the Spurs win big time.
Is everybody just discounting Chris Bosh?
Yes.
I mean, basically, do you think this is an audition for his job?
Yeah, like I said in that last segment, he would have been gone. I feel if they had lost that last series. Bosh is going to have a big series.
So I think he probably knows that.
He seems to be one of the big three who's getting lost in of the big three. He seems to be the one you don't hear that much about, doing a lot of great things. Of the three guys, but
when Bosh was the only of the big three playing, he actually did a good job of carrying that team for a few games. He has the ability to do that.
Well, maybe he'll take this opportunity to light a fire under his ass and get going. That could be a factor. Real quick, we don't have a ton of time, John. I want to ask you, the Yankees. How hard are the Yankees in a year like this to set odds on and to bet on as the season goes on and games go on and injuries take place? It looks like A-Rod, if this scandal in Miami gets worse, is not going to come back at all. Jeter's a question mark. These guys are injured. How hard are the Yankees for you to place odds on and for a gambler to bet on this year?
Well, as far as the future book, for them to win it all, they've been as high as 20-1. And they were leading the East at one time, and we were taking some money on them. And I guess the feeling was from the bettors was, if this team is playing this good without their players, when they get back, they're going to have a real shot. Well, things started to fall apart for the Yankees. They started to lose games and it looked like they needed a lot of those guys back before they could get them back. But you just mentioned a couple of things. Even if they get them back, it doesn't mean that this team is going to be able to play that much better. Jeter's ankles might be questionable for the rest of his career. A-Rod, the way he finished last year, I don't even know what to expect from a guy like that. So the team needs to go through some changes, and I'm sure they will after this year. But at this point, the rest of the division, Boston's having just an absolutely great year. Baltimore's is an upcoming team. Looks like Tampa Bay is going to probably be in the hunt. So the Yankees are going to have their hands full even to make the playoffs. So if those guys come back, they're going to have to give them everything they have to keep this team, to help this team get into the playoffs, which is still quite a distance off from now.
Okay, John. Well, John, I appreciate it. And real quick, I want to make this clear that Dan asked me to ask this. Who will Dez pick on The Bachelorette? I don't even know what that means.
Oh, my God.
Well, Dez, I guess, from what I saw, there's only been a couple of shows, and the guy that looks like she has the greatest connection with early is a guy named Brooks. I saw a real strong connection with him on the last show. So that's the favorite right now. We'll see. We've got a long way to go, but that's the favorite heading into only after 2 weeks of play.
All right, I'm going to stop this right now, John.
The question is, though, what will we watch next week? The Bachelor or the probably Game 3?
I'm not even gonna respect that with an answer. My God. All right, Game 3. John, I love you, man. You're the best, and we will talk to you real soon, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Have a fine night.
John Avello.